So, you want to know why I slept with my married boss over 200 times, why my fiancé is gone, and why everyone is acting like I'm some kind of monster? Fine. I'm Zoe. I'm 28, and honestly, this whole mess is far more complicated than people want to believe. Everyone wants a simple story with a villain and a hero. But life isn't that clean. And love. Love is the messiest thing of all. Let's talk about Daniel. For 4 years, Daniel was my life. For the last 3 months of that, he was my fiancé. He was kind, he was stable, he was perfect. And I have come to learn that there is nothing more suffocating than perfection. His love was a checklist he completed with meticulous, maddening precision. Every morning, he'd wake up before me to make coffee. Not just any coffee. It was a specific, single-origin bean, ground fresh, brewed at a precise temperature, served in my favorite mug with exactly 1/2 teaspoon of sugar. Every single morning. A gesture that was sweet the first time, thoughtful the 10th time, and by the 100th time, it felt like a cage. He remembered everything. The anniversary of our first date, our first kiss, the first time we watched a stupid movie together. He'd plan these elaborate dinners, these weekend getaways I never asked for. He was performing the role of the perfect boyfriend, and the applause he wanted was my happiness, but it felt fake. It felt like he was trying to convince himself, more than me, that what we had was worth protecting. I started working at the marketing agency about 6 months into our relationship, and that's where I met Adrian. Adrian was the creative director. He was probably in his mid-40s, married, and moved with the kind of gravitational pull that bent rooms around him. He didn't walk, he entered. He didn't speak, he declared. Where Daniel was soft, Adrian was sharp. Where Daniel's love was a gentle, predictable tide, Adrian was a thunderstorm. I remember the first time he truly noticed me. It was in a major pitch meeting. I presented a campaign strategy that was risky, unconventional. The other executives looked nervous. Daniel would have told me it was brilliant, no matter what. He would have soothed my anxieties. Adrian just stared at me from across the polished mahogany table, his gray eyes narrowed. "That's a bold play, Zoe," he said, his voice a low hum. "Most people would be too scared to even suggest it. Walk me through your contingency plan for when it all goes to hell." He didn't praise me. He challenged me. He saw my mind, not just my potential to make him happy. Later that day, he stopped by my desk. He leaned over, pointing at a line on my screen, and his shoulder brushed against mine. A jolt, electric and sharp, shot through me. "Good work today," he murmured, his breath smelling faintly of expensive whiskey and mint. "You have a rare quality." And just like that, the air in my life changed. Daniel would come home from his job as a physical therapist, his hands gentle and healing, and he'd want to talk about our future. The wedding, the house, the children. He'd talk about building a life, and all I could hear was the sound of walls going up around me. I started staying late at work. "Just a big project, babe," I'd tell him over the phone. "We're trying to land the Sterling account." But it wasn't about the work. It was about the conversations. In the quiet, empty office after everyone else had gone home, Adrian and I would talk. He spoke of his marriage as a business arrangement, a partnership for appearances. His wife, he said, was a wonderful woman, but they were two ships passing in the night. He made it sound so tragic, so noble. He made me feel like I was the only person who saw the real him. The man behind the tailored suits and the confident facade. One night, he was looking over a proposal I'd written. He looked up from the page, his eyes locking onto mine. "You see things differently, Zoe," he said, his voice soft. "It's intoxicating. Daniel doesn't know how lucky he is." That was the key. He didn't say I was lucky to have Daniel. He said Daniel was lucky to have me. And in that moment, I felt like I had permission for everything that was about to happen. The first time he kissed me, it wasn't some grand, dramatic moment. We were in his office, spreadsheets glowing on the monitor between us. He had just complimented an idea I'd had, and then he just stopped talking. He looked at me, really looked at me, and it was like every conversation, every shared glance, every late night had been leading to this exact point. His hand came up to my face, his thumb tracing my jawline, and then he kissed me. I wasn't supposed to feel this way. I was supposed to feel guilty, conflicted, torn. I felt none of those things. I felt relieved. It was like coming home to a place I'd never been before. It was a kiss that didn't seek to please, but to possess. It was raw and honest, and everything my life with Daniel wasn't. When I got home that night, Daniel was asleep on the couch, a half-watched romantic comedy paused on the screen. There were flowers on the coffee table. He'd remembered the 2-year anniversary of the day we adopted our cat. Looking at him, so peaceful and good, I didn't feel guilt. I felt frustration. He was trying so hard to be everything I was supposed to want, when what I truly wanted was already happening somewhere else. That night was the beginning. The affair became my secret garden, a place I retreated to that was vibrant and dangerous and real. Adrian handled everything. He booked a room at a boutique hotel across town, the Elliston. He always paid in cash. He'd order wine, and we'd talk for hours before we ever touched. He treated me like an equal, a confidant. I became a masterful liar. My life split into 2 different timelines. There was the boring, black and white world with Daniel, filled with conversations about wedding venues and floral arrangements. And then there was the vivid, technicolor world with Adrian. "Hey, honey," Daniel would say over the phone, his voice warm and trusting. "How was your day?" "So busy," I'd sigh, lying on the silk sheets of the Elliston, Adrian's fingers tracing patterns on my back. "This project is killing me. I think I'll have to stay late again." The lie itself became a thrill. It was a small act of rebellion, of taking control. I was the author of my own life, and no one knew the real plot but me. Then, one evening, Daniel took me to our favorite Italian restaurant. He was nervous, fumbling with his fork, and then he got down on one knee. He pulled out a small velvet box. Inside was a simple, elegant diamond ring. It was perfect. Of course it was. Daniel did everything perfectly. He told me he loved me, that he couldn't imagine his life without me, and I felt a wave of pure, cold panic. Saying yes felt like agreeing to settle, agreeing to a life that would never excite me again. But saying no, that would have meant explaining why. And I wasn't ready for that conversation. Not yet. So I smiled, a tear rolling down my cheek. And I said yes. He slipped the ring onto my finger. It felt impossibly heavy. Later that night, as I lay next to him in bed, pretending to be asleep, my phone buzzed silently on the nightstand. A text from Adrian. "Thinking of you." A jolt of electricity went through me, a secret, wonderful current of life. I looked at the ring sparkling in the moonlight, and then at the glowing screen of my phone. And I felt for the first time like I truly had it all. For a 1.5 years, I lived in that dual reality. The affair with Adrian was a steady rhythm in my life. Meeting 2 or 3 times a week, the lies to Daniel became second nature. The crazy part is, the better I got at lying, the more I resented Daniel for believing me. His trust felt like a weakness. His kindness felt like ignorance. I started picking fights over stupid things, the way he loaded the dishwasher, the shows he wanted to watch. The fights gave me an excuse to storm out, to stay late, to create the space I needed for my other life. Then, everything changed. Adrian called me into his office one afternoon. He closed the door. He didn't smile. "I got the promotion," he said. "The Chicago office. I'll be heading up the entire Midwest division." I felt the floor drop out from under me. "When?" I managed to ask. "I leave at the end of the month." And that was it. It was a business decision. He spoke about it with the same detachment he used to discuss quarterly earnings. There were no promises to stay in touch, no tearful goodbyes. It was a project that had reached its conclusion. He was simply closing the file. Suddenly, the most exciting part of my life was just gone. I was left with Daniel, with our quiet evenings, our suffocating routine, and the wedding plans that now felt like a death sentence. The world turned gray. Daniel, of course, noticed. He thought I was stressed from work. He tried to cheer me up, surprise dates, little gifts, back rubs. Every gentle touch, every thoughtful gesture was like a hot poker against my skin. It was a reminder of everything I was missing, of how pale and inadequate our life was. The engagement ring on my finger started to feel like a manacle. About 3 months after Adrian left, I was lying in bed next to Daniel, listening to the soft, steady rhythm of his breathing. And I just broke. I couldn't handle the weight of pretending anymore. I couldn't stand the thought of walking down that aisle, promising to love and honor this man while carrying a secret so massive it had its own gravity. People will say I confessed out of guilt. But it wasn't guilt. Not really. It was suffocation. The lie was choking me. I started crying. Not loud sobs, but the silent, shoulder-shaking kind. Daniel woke up instantly. "Zoe! Hey, what is it? What's wrong?" His immediate response, as always, was to fix it, to take care of me. And that just made it worse. I was about to shatter his entire world, and he was trying to comfort me. "I have to tell you something," I whispered, my voice hoarse. It's about Adrian." I watched his face in the dim light from the street lamp outside. The sleepy concern vanished, replaced by a slow, dawning confusion. He knew this wasn't about a work mistake. The words tumbled out of me in a rush, a torrent of truth I couldn't hold back any longer. "I've been sleeping with him for over a year. It was going on for almost our entire engagement. I lied to you hundreds of times." He just stared at me. Silence. A deep, profound silence that was louder than any screaming match could ever be. I almost wanted him to yell, to cry, to throw something, to beg me for an explanation. But he did none of those things. He sat up, swung his legs over the side of the bed, and turned on the small lamp on his nightstand. The soft light cast his face in shadow. He looked calm, methodical. "When did it start?" he asked, his voice completely flat, devoid of any emotion. "About a year and a half ago." "How often?" "2, sometimes 3 times a week." "Where?" "A hotel, the Elliston." He paused, his eyes fixed on a spot on the wall. Then he looked back at me, his gaze so empty it terrified me. "Did you use protection?" The question was so clinical, so detached, it felt like a slap. I had just confessed to the ultimate betrayal, and he was asking about logistics. I stared back at him, bewildered and suddenly, strangely, angry. I had just detonated a bomb in the middle of our lives, and he was calmly inspecting the rubble. In that moment, I realized his silence was not a void. It was a weapon, and he had just started to use it. The days that followed were the strangest of my life. The explosion I had expected never came. Instead, an eerie, unnatural calm settled over our apartment. Daniel became a ghost who looked like my fiancé. He continued to go to work. He came home at his normal time. He would cook dinner for himself and leave the leftovers in the fridge. He watched television. He went to bed. He operated like a man on autopilot while his soul was processing a fatal error. He did not speak to me. Not a single word that wasn't absolutely necessary. If I was in his way in the kitchen, he would say a quiet, "Excuse me." That was it. At first, I thought he was in shock. I tried to start conversations. "Daniel, can we please talk about this?" I'd plead. "We can work through it. People make mistakes." He would just look at me, his eyes vacant, and give a slight shake of his head before walking away. His silence was a punishment far more exquisite and cruel than any fight would have been. A fight would have been engagement. It would have been proof that he still cared enough to be angry. This was erasure. I started to get angry, frustrated. How dare he shut me out like this? I had been the one who was honest. I had been the one to break the suffocating silence, and now he was using it against me. Then, I started noticing small changes. One evening, I saw him on his laptop, looking at a spreadsheet. I glanced over his shoulder. It was a detailed budget, our shared finances, split neatly down the middle. A few days later, a stack of flattened cardboard boxes appeared in the spare bedroom. He was leaving. But he was doing it with the methodical efficiency of an accountant closing out a ledger. There was no emotion, no drama, just logistics. Watching him handle the end of our 4-year relationship like a business transaction made me feel disposable. It hurt in a way I couldn't have imagined. It hurt worse than shouting, worse than tears. One Friday, I came home from work. The apartment was too quiet. I walked into the bedroom. Half of the closet was empty, his dresser was bare. The photos of us on his nightstand were gone. On the kitchen counter was an envelope with my name on it. Inside wasn't a letter full of heartbreak and anger. It was a printout. A list of the household bills that were now my sole responsibility, and a check for his half of the next month's rent. He was gone. He hadn't even given me the courtesy of a goodbye. I stood alone in the center of the living room. The silence I had once craved, the escape from Daniel's constant questions and affections, was now absolute. It pressed in on me from all sides, a physical weight. It was the sound of my own creation, and it was deafening. In the weeks that followed, I learned the true meaning of Daniel's silence. It wasn't just personal, it was a scorched earth campaign. Our mutual friends became distant. Texts went unanswered, invitations stopped coming. When I ran into a couple we were close with at the grocery store, they were polite but cold, finding an excuse to leave as quickly as possible. He hadn't told them to pick a side. He didn't have to. His quiet dignity was more powerful than any angry accusation I could have made. They had all chosen him. I was an island, and I was furious. How was this fair? Relationships are complicated. I was the one hurting, the one who had been abandoned, and I was the one being punished. My mind started to build a new narrative. A fortress of justification. Daniel's complacency had created the conditions for the affair. His lack of passion had driven me into Adrian's arms. His refusal to fight for us now was proof that he had never really loved me, that he was looking for an easy way out. Then, about 2 months after Daniel left, I heard through the office grapevine that Adrian was back in town for a conference. A desperate, foolish hope sparked in me. Maybe this was the reason for everything. Now we were both free. Maybe what we had was real. I knew he liked a particular coffee shop downtown. I spent 2 mornings there, nursing a latte, waiting. On the second day, he walked in. He was with 2 other executives, laughing at something one of them said. He looked as confident and powerful as ever. Our eyes met across the room. For a split second, I saw a flicker of recognition. And then it was gone. He gave me a polite, impersonal nod, the kind you give a stranger who holds the door for you, and then turned his back, completely absorbed in his conversation. He had looked right through me. After everything we had shared, after all the secrets and the passion in that hotel room, I was nothing more than a stranger. A closed file. A completed project. The humiliation was a physical blow. I left my coffee on the table and walked out, blinking back tears of pure rage. Men were all the same. Adrian only cared about the chase, and Daniel was too weak to even fight. I went home to my empty apartment. I found his old phone number in my contacts. I knew it was pointless, but I had to try. I pressed the call button. A recorded voice answered. "The number you have dialed is no longer in service." He had changed it. He had systematically, meticulously, cut every single tie. I threw my phone against the wall, and it shattered. The empty room offered no response. Only the echo of my own failure. 6 months. 6 months have passed since my life fell apart. Or, more accurately, since I took a sledgehammer to it. I still live in the same apartment. It feels too big now. His absence is a presence, a lingering ghost in every room. My performance at work has suffered. I lost the fire, the edge. I'm just going through the motions. Last week, I ran into Chloe, a friend who had been closer to me than to Daniel, but who had still pulled away. I cornered her in the wine aisle of the supermarket. She couldn't escape. "How is he?" I asked, trying to sound casual. She looked uncomfortable. "Zoe, I don't think—" "Please, Chloe, I just want to know that he's okay." She sighed, defeated. "He's good, Zoe. He's really good." And then she told me, he got a major promotion at the hospital, now managing the entire physical therapy department. He started going to therapy. He reconnected with his old college friends. He's been training for a marathon. And then the final knife twist? "He's seeing someone," Chloe said, refusing to meet my eyes. "Her name is Sophie. She's really sweet. She's a veterinarian. She's like sunshine in human form." I felt the air leave my lungs. It all clicked into place. His calm reaction. His methodical departure. His silence. It wasn't weakness. It wasn't shock. It was a plan. This was his revenge. Not a loud, messy, dramatic revenge, but a quiet, devastatingly effective one. The ultimate revenge is to simply be better without the person who broke you. To thrive not in spite of them, but in their complete and utter absence. His happiness is a personal insult, a calculated act of cruelty. How does someone who was supposedly devastated get over it so quickly? He must have already been halfway out the door. He must have been waiting for an excuse. So now, I sit here, in this generic bar downtown, swirling the last of the amber liquid in my glass. The man I had an affair with sees me as a stranger. The man I was going to marry has become a better version of himself without me. My friends have abandoned me, and I'm the villain of the story. Everyone wants to paint this as some simple tale about a cheater and a victim. But the reality is that Daniel and I were both unhappy. We both contributed to the relationship failing. He let it get stagnant and boring. He pushed me away with his predictability. And if he can't acknowledge his part in what went wrong, well, then he was never the person I thought he was anyway. I'm better off. Better off without people who can't forgive one mistake. Who treat me like I'm irredeemable instead of recognizing that I'm human, and humans are flawed. Yes, I'm much better off. I say the words to myself, a hollow mantra in the noise of the bar. But my voice is empty, my glass is empty, and the seat next to me is empty. And I have a terrible, sinking feeling that it's going to stay that way for a very, very long time.